Well, hello. I'm Nigel Walker, and we are again looking at photo stories, this time with Chris Routledge. Chris started life after his degree as a freelance writer and academic before turning to photography. His works appeared in many publications, including Black and White Photography and Lancashire Life, and his works also appeared in both solo and group shows over the last few years. In 2019, he won the Michael Marks Poetry Pamphlet Award for an illustration of a poem by Rebecca Goss in her collection Carousel. So I'm sure that there's much more to your life than I've said, Chris. In fact, I know there is. But by way of being brief
Yeah.
and an introduction, welcome to Photo Stories.
Thank you very much.
Anything that I've missed out that you need to tell us before we start?
I don't think so. I think that's a good place to start with, and I'm sure there'll be more things to say as we're going on.
Okay, well, if you'd like to share with us the photograph.
Okay. Here we go. Here we go. The usual delay. Can you see that?
Great, yeah, you could probably make it slightly larger.
Okay.
Yeah,
How's that?
that's much better. Thank you. Great.
Good.
Tell me
Okay.
about the picture and why you took it then.
Well, as you can see, this is a photograph of an escalator, and it's at Moorfield Station in Liverpool. Um, I used to work at the University of Liverpool, and I used to, on my commute, take a point and shoot camera with me backwards and forwards. And this was one of the photographs that I took with the point and shoot camera. The reason for taking it is a fairly long story, but quite a good one. So back in I think 2008, something like that, I was working as partly as a freelancer for a magazine called The Reader, which became the Reader organization and so on. And I was at an event in Runcorn and I met a poet called Rebecca Goss, who she was doing a presentation. It was a literary magazine, and she was doing a presentation about her poetry, and I was doing some talks about various things, um, and some events. And I met her, and we started talking, and she started asking me about photography. And I don't know why we got onto photography because I wasn't there for the because of photography. But I mentioned to her that I just turned 40. And when I was 40, I decided that I was going to buy a camera that was the same age as me. So, and I found for £9 a Soviet-made Zorky 4 rangefinder with a Jupiter 8 lens.
Great cameras.
They are great cameras. They're much tougher than they seem, and you can probably use them as a weapon if somebody tries to break into your house as well. Um, the so anyway, I had this Zorky 4 rangefinder, but I was also interested because I had this point and shoot that I was using to go in on my commute. It was a digital point and shoot, an Olympus something or other, and it was an interchangeable lens camera. And I discovered that I could put this Jupiter 8 lens on this camera as well. So I started using this manual focus lens, which has a kind of strange and old-fashioned rendering on it, to walk around Liverpool. And the advantage was that the sensor was small, so you ended up with a longer focal length than the lens itself. And you could step back from things a bit, which was good for me because I'm a bit of an introvert, really, so I don't like getting in people's faces. So anyway, I got chatting to her, and we had this conversation about this was a Soviet-made lens. It had come from the Soviet Union, and it had probably taken pictures inside the Soviet Union over the previous 40 years. And we were kind of intrigued by this. Anyway, go forward a bit. About a year later, I got in touch with her and I said, "Look, what about I take some pictures, you write some poems, and we see where we go from there." And so I was walking around Liverpool at this point on my commute, deliberately taking photographs to send to Rebecca so that she could look at them and write poems. And this is one of those photographs. I was really taken with the way that it just drops off like that. It's quite terrifying. And the poem that she came up with kind of reflects that. Can I read the poem?
Sure, yeah.
It's just because it's probably a bit small on the screen and some people might struggle with that. So anyway, this is Rebecca Goss's poem, The Escalator. I'm halfway up when the stranger topples. Her clumsy lack of balance becomes a heavy, dangerous weight I cannot right. As her body repels the force of dirty treads, my shoulders block her petrified bulk. I grip the wide rubber rail, feel it shudder. Her black hair tangles in my mouth. My other hand gropes her coat, a very intimate struggle, the abyss behind us getting deeper all the time. Those on the descent look embarrassed as they glide down to trains, until at last the top, where I lever her upright, let her go. She walks right into the street without a thank you. Behind me, the commuters rise straight as candles from the dark.
A good poem as well.
It is a good poem,
And
and
it
she
suits,
really, I think, yeah, she really gets that photograph. I think, and that kind of sense of dropping down. That's a particularly deep tunnel.
so it was the photograph that made her write the poem, not the poem that made you take the photograph.
Yes, we had at this point had started sharing things back and forth, and we found that, and this is possibly just me as a photographer being unimaginative, but she we found that when she wrote a poem and I had to photograph to the poem, my photographs were just too literal. It was very difficult to make a photograph that was connected to the kind of slightly metaphorical edge of her work. I mean, a photograph is metaphorical anyway, but it came out too literal. It
Yeah.
worked much better when she responded to my work. So anyway, we eventually we had a website for a while. And we focused on the idea of this Jupiter 8 lens, but eventually that became a bit restrictive. So we just started sharing photographs and poems and so on. Um, and we put together a book. We got a little publisher called Guillemot Press down in, I think, Devon, who published it. And the book won an award for the illustrations for the photographs.
Well,
So we were wined and dined at the British Library. There was a big ceremony. It's a big the awards were actually for poetry pamphlets, so there was a whole load of different categories, and this was the illustration category. So yeah, this chance meeting, a literary event where we were both there because we were literary people, ended up with this photography award.
and an ongoing relationship and ward at the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I was still very much in touch with Rebecca and visited her and so on. She lives down in Suffolk now.
Oh,
And she's written a great deal. I really recommend her work. She's done a lot of different work, and it's very strong and engaging. So yeah,
thank
I
you.
recommend her
I'll
work.
look her up.
Yeah.
Um,
The
you've
can I just
obviously sorry,
sorry, say again?
I was going to say the photograph is black and white. Is that
Yeah.
typical of your work, or is that
I
like
do favor black and white. I like the abstraction of it. I like it to be, you have to put a little bit more effort into to it's like watching snooker on a black and white television. You have to imagine what color the balls are. Uh, and you gradually get to know what color the balls are just by looking at the black and white. So yeah, it is typically black and white. My work is not typically any more urban. I would say that I'm now a landscape photographer and I concentrate quite a lot on ecological issues. So um, my current work is to do with hard knot forest in Cumbria, where there is a kind of great. It's wrong to call it a rewilding scheme. It's a landscape recovery project to kind of reclaim commercial forest for a kind of native woodland.
well, we might have to come back and talk to you again about that project at some future
Think
date,
so.
Chris.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's Wildwood, which you exhibited for me in
Oh,
Hull.
well, I've certainly seen some of the photographs from it,
Yeah.
yes, and we
Yeah.
were engaged with
Yeah.
a joint exhibition last year. So
Yeah.
I have seen some of that work, and
Yeah,
I'll be
yeah,
interested to see how it pans out in the
yeah,
end.
yeah.
Chris, for now, that's great. Thank you ever so much for joining us. If people have enjoyed this particular photo stories, there are more online. You just have to press the subscribe button below and it will alert you when they pop up. For now, I want to say thank you very much, Chris,
You're
and
welcome.
we'll look forward to talking about Wildwood perhaps at some future point in time.
That would
So
be good. Yeah.